Everyone remembers Gary Burghoff as the soft-spoken heart of MASH, the quiet clerk clutching his teddy bear, flashing that sweet smile that won over millions. But behind the scenes, that gentle image hid a storm brewing just beneath the surface. Some of his co-stars didn't just dislike him, they flat out couldn't stand him. A few even vowed they'd never work with him again. The real shocker. These weren't outsiders throwing shade. They were the same people who once called him family, only to later turn their backs and embarrass him in front of everyone.
Affected by the campfire that has devastated our beloved Paradise and Magalia communities, as well as others.
When you find out which Hollywood legends had such deep grudges, it's hard to believe how real the tension got. Let's start with Wayne Rogers, the first star to completely blow up at Gary Burghoff. Back in the early MASH years, Wayne was the big name, the cool-headed actor everyone admired. He was known for his calm energy, but when it came to Gary, that calm went right out the window. Their feud wasn't just a small disagreement, it was explosive, the kind of drama that had everyone on set whispering. It all went down at Stage 9 on the 20th Century Fox lot. During those early table reads, the cast would sit together, cracking jokes, building chemistry, and finding their rhythm. Wayne always nailed his lines with that smooth, confident delivery he was famous for. Meanwhile, Gary came across as jittery, nervous, and overly protective of his character. He worried about every line, every reaction, as if the smallest thing might ruin Radar's image. That tension started small, but it didn't stay that way for long. At first, Wayne tried to take Gary under his wing, showing him the ropes and keeping things cool. But it didn't take long before Gary's nervous energy started clashing with Wayne's calm, structured vibe. The real turning point came when producers noticed something huge. Audiences loved Radar. Test screenings showed Gary's character was stealing hearts everywhere, and suddenly Fox executives couldn't stop mentioning his name in ratings meetings. That's when things got awkward. Wayne had signed on believing Trapper John was supposed to be the co-lead, the big equal next to Hawkeye. But slowly, he started noticing something strange. More and more of his key swamp scenes were being rewritten, giving Radar the emotional spotlight instead. Crew members remember Wayne muttering, "Radar again," under his breath every time new script pages showed up. It wasn't that he hated the character, it was Gary's attitude that set him off. Instead of handling his new fame with confidence, Gary got defensive, even paranoid. He'd ask stuff like, "Why am I not in this scene?" or "Why did they cut my line?" over and over, like every edit was some kind of personal attack. Wayne, who prided himself on professionalism, had zero patience for that kind of behavior. Then came Season 2, filmed under the scorching Malibu Creek sun. Long days, heavy heat, and tempers running thin. That's when Gary's mood swings started hitting hard. During one tense mess tent scene, Gary suddenly stormed off mid-take, upset that Radar wouldn't react this way. The whole set froze. Wayne just stared at him, completely stunned. That was the moment something shifted. His irritation turned into real dislike. From then on, every time Gary interrupted Wayne during a scene, insisting Radar should control the emotional rhythm, Wayne's jaw tightened just a little more. Then, in one explosive moment, the man known for his easygoing charm snapped. The calmest actor on MASH suddenly became the angriest one on set. Wayne's breaking point came fast and fierce. In a flash of rage, he grabbed a metal folding chair and hurled it straight at Gary. The crash echoed through the room like a gunshot. The entire crew froze, jaws dropped, not a sound except the metal clattering on the floor. One boom mic operator later said, "I'd never seen Wayne look like that. It scared all of us." Wayne didn't even try to deny it later. In fact, years afterward, he admitted, "I lost it." Working with Gary felt like standing next to a fuse you didn't realize was burning. After that day, their relationship was done for good. They still filmed together because the script demanded it, but that bond was dead. The air between them turned toxic. Wayne completely stopped talking to Gary off camera, pretending like he wasn't even there. Insiders say this tension played a huge part in Wayne's decision not to renew his MASH contract. He just couldn't take it anymore. They never made peace. Not in interviews, not during reunions, not once. Two men who'd spent hundreds of hours acting like best friends on screen carried that grudge for life, never saying a word to heal it. Then came McLean Stevenson, the man who couldn't stand Gary at all. Unlike Wayne, McLean didn't bother hiding his frustration. From the first day, they started working side by side inside Colonel Henry Blake's office set on Stage 9 at 20th Century Fox. McLean realized something off. Gary just made him tense, and once that feeling set in, things went downhill fast. The earliest cracks showed during those initial table reads. McLean, known for his playful sense of humor, loved throwing in jokes and little ad-libs to keep the room laughing. But Gary didn't find it funny. Not one bit. One morning, during a simple back and forth between Henry Blake and Radar, McLean added a small off-script line to lighten the mood. The moment it left his mouth, Gary froze, shot him a glare, and stayed silent the rest of the read. Later that same day, he pulled a writer aside, complaining that McLean was changing the energy of Radar. From then on, everyone knew the tension between those two was about to explode. When word got back to McLean, his reaction was quick and sharp. "Oh boy, we're going to have a problem." And he was right. From that moment on, their personalities clashed hard. McLean was easygoing, spontaneous, the kind of guy who liked to go with the flow. Gary, on the other hand, was tightly wound, sensitive, cautious, and emotionally fragile. During the first season's filming out at the blistering Malibu Creek set, the sun would bake the crew under 100-degree heat. Whenever things got overwhelming, Gary would pull back and shut down, trying to protect himself. But McLean didn't see it that way. He took it as attitude, like Gary thought he was above everyone else. Meanwhile, Gary saw McLean's jokes as mocking him, not as friendly teasing. The confusion between them spread fast like mold growing in a sealed-up tent. It all came to a head one afternoon while shooting a touching scene inside the mess tent. The script called for Henry to comfort Radar after a tough day. A quiet, emotional exchange meant to show their bond. McLean delivered it beautifully, and at the end, tossed in a small, gentle joke to lift the mood just a bit. The crew smiled, thinking it was perfect. But Gary didn't smile. Not even close. As soon as the director yelled, "Cut!" Gary marched straight over to McLean between the canvas walls and snapped, "You're making Radar the fool." The whole tent went silent. McLean just stood there, stunned and furious. From that moment on, he started pulling away emotionally, keeping his distance from Gary both on and off set. Later, McLean confided quietly to the script supervisor, saying, "He thinks I'm attacking him. I'm not, but he makes me the villain without even trying." That one line said it all. McLean felt stuck in a misunderstanding that he couldn't fix, no matter what he did. By season 3, things had turned ice cold between them. And when McLean finally announced he was leaving MASH, the public thought it was for his career. But insiders knew there was way more to the story. Behind the polished smiles and reunion rumors, insiders whispered a different story. McLean didn't just leave MASH for new career moves. Part of him needed space from the emotional battlefield that working with Gary had become. Their tension never healed. There was no reunion hug, no quiet phone call years later. Nothing. When McLean passed away in 1996, he and Gary had left things exactly where they'd fallen apart, unresolved, tense, and buried under years of awkward silence and pride. And then came the biggest shock of all. Even Alan Alda, the heart and captain of MASH, hit his breaking point with Gary Burghoff. The man everyone saw as calm, wise, and endlessly patient finally lost it. It happened quietly, long before fans ever noticed anything was off. One afternoon on Stage 9 at 20th Century Fox, during what should have been a simple rehearsal, Alan looked at Gary with a kind of disbelief no one had ever seen from him. The crew felt it instantly. Something between the show's two biggest stars had snapped. It started during a rewrite session focused on a Hawkeye and Radar storyline. Alan, who co-wrote many episodes, had poured himself into the script. But when Gary read through his lines, he frowned, shoved the pages away, and said sharply, "Radar deserves better than this." The room went still. Writers, producers, assistants, everyone froze. Then Gary crossed a line he couldn't take back. He looked Alan straight in the eye and said, "You only write Hawkeye as the hero." That wasn't just criticism. It was a direct hit at the man who was the soul of MASH. The silence afterward was thick enough to cut with a knife. Alan didn't fire back, but everyone could tell the atmosphere had shifted permanently. Weeks later, their real confrontation erupted on set at Malibu Creek. The director was blocking a simple emotional scene, Hawkeye comforting Radar after a rough day. But before cameras even rolled, the tension between them started to crackle again. And this time, there was no hiding it. After one particularly emotional scene, everything finally fell apart. The script called for Radar to react to bad news with vulnerability, but Gary wasn't having it. He refused the director's notes, insisting Radar should respond with more authority, completely changing the moment's tone. Alan, ever the peacemaker, stepped in softly, trying to keep the day from unraveling. But instead of calming down, Gary snapped again. "You don't decide how Radar feels." That was it. Alan's expression changed in an instant. The warmth drained from his face. He didn't shout, didn't curse, just said in a low, cutting voice, "We're trying to work, Gary." The tone was so icy that the entire set froze. From that moment on, something in their dynamic broke completely. After that day, every scene they shared carried an invisible wall between them. Gary took every bit of direction like it was a personal attack, while Alan started keeping his distance, avoiding small talk and skipping casual moments on set. They'd stand shoulder to shoulder during close-up shots, looking like brothers on camera. But as soon as the director yelled, "Cut!" silence took over. Not a word, not even eye contact. By the time season 7 rolled around, that tension was impossible to hide. During one simple tense scene, Gary couldn't even look Alan in the eyes for the first take. The director of photography called for a reset. Same thing happened again in take 2. Gary kept staring away, completely shut down. Alan didn't call him out or make a scene. He just repositioned himself quietly and tried again. But the message was clear. Gary didn't want to share emotional space with him anymore. What made it so heartbreaking was how quiet the feud was. No screaming fits, no public blow-ups, just a chilling silence that said more than words ever could. Crew members later admitted that the coldness between Alan and Gary was harder to watch than any argument. On camera, they were charming and friendly for the fans, but behind the smiles, the closeness everyone believed in was long gone. In the end, Gary Burghoff carried a legacy that no feud could ever erase. Even though he clashed with 3 of MASH's biggest stars, he walked away with something far greater, the soul of the show itself. Radar O'Reilly became the heartbeat of MASH, the innocence, the shaky voice, the soft heart, and of course, that little teddy bear that became just as iconic as the show. Every bit of it outlived the tension, the arguments, and the silence that haunted the set. While the behind-the-scenes drama burned quietly, fans never saw any of that. What they saw was magic, a character who felt painfully real, someone who captured the human side of war and friendship. No matter what happened between the cast, audiences connected with Radar like he was family. And decades later, when people talk about the heart of MASH, they don't bring up the fights, the cold stares, or the chair-throwing moments. They remember the warmth, the laughter, and the sweetness that Gary brought to life. Gary Burghoff's time on MASH was chaotic, emotional, and unforgettable. But his legacy? It's untouchable. He turned pain into performance and left behind a piece of television history that still hits deep today. So what do you think? Was Gary truly misunderstood, or were those clashes just bound to happen in a high-pressure spotlight? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and hit that bell so you never miss another wild deep dive into the secret stories of classic Hollywood.